up and down big mountains, we don't run up the mountain. It's kind of a fast hike, right?
Yeah.
But I'm running down, I'm running the flats. I literally sprinted the last 4 miles. So from 26 to 30.2, I sprinted. And I just felt that good. So it's like what you're saying is that if you run a pace, you put your faith in the process and the training and the endurance that you built those 4 months, it'll be there on race day, and you got to rely on it. And I've never seen that to this degree, because it was 30 miles to work with, in my own personal training and abilities. So I was absolutely blown away by that. And I had plenty of reserves for me the last 5 miles in terms of my endurance. And although it wasn't a tight race, the guy that beat me by an hour and a half. The guy that was behind me, I beat him by 40 minutes. So we're not talking about minutes or seconds in between us. But if I had been in that point, I would have passed a lot of guys those last 5 miles. And that's what my trainer said. He goes, look, save it for the last 10, last 5. You're going to have it in the tank. It's going to pay off. So it really did. I was absolutely blown away.
Yeah. Well, and that being said, you said, you would had a lot of, opportunity to pass guys, and I look at this and I go, how many guys are actually doing this Ultra Beast? Obviously there's quite a few, but I'm like, if you do the, the regular Beast, like you were saying, I'm sure like the entry list is double as big as the Ultra Beast, right?
Yeah, it was a 6,000 person weekend with all the racing that happened out there. I don't know the exact amount of entries for the Ultra. It was probably over 200 or 300 people.
Wow.
What I found very interesting, and a lot goes through your head when you're out there running for 8.5 hours in terms of thinking about the competitors and where everybody's at, and did you see this person already, or who's in front of you? Because they send you off in groups. So they sent off a group at 6 a.m. It was a younger audience, and then we went off at 6:15, which was a mix between older and super young. So you don't really know where you stand amongst the general population of racers. But on the halfway mark, they allow you to go into a corral that they set up where you can, they call it a transition area, right? And that gives you a chance early in the morning before your race to set some supplies out like food, a change of socks, a change of shoes, shirt, whatever it is you need for the halfway part of the race. It's like a pit stop in a race car, right?
Yeah.
So I come into the transition area, and what they do is they have everybody's supplies on one side of a field, and you grab your supplies, and then you move to the empty side of the field so that they have an idea of how many people have come in and transitioned. And I pick up my bucket, and I'm going over the empty side of the field, and there's only like 10 buckets over there. And I didn't really think about it at first, but then a few guys showed up, and I see them coming over. Now there's like 5 or 6 of us transitioning. And again, there's only like 8 to 15 buckets there. I'm like, where's everybody at? Like, is that many people behind me still? And there's like this entire football field of transition buckets sitting on the other side, right? And that's when I realized, wow, I think we're like the lead group here.
Wow.
So it was pretty intense to know going into my second half that we were in the lead group of people.
Well, and I know you got a ton of fan questions here, you know what I mean? And I know, obviously, right now you're killing it. But, I mean, what's your background, like, as far as sports and athletics and things like that? I mean, growing up, because obviously now you've got, the itch for Spartan Racing and the training. I mean, was that something that you did when you were younger? I mean, did you play, run track? Did you play football, basketball? I mean, what's your background with athletics?
Yeah, at a young age, I started wrestling. I say young, so in junior high, I started wrestling. By the time I got to high school, I was the captain of the wrestling team, whether that was, junior varsity or varsity, and I did that for 4 years. And then I did a couple years of wrestling in college while I was going to college. And for the most part, that was my athletic training. I did play a few years of football in high school. But, for me, I was that surfer boy out at the beach all the time. So I did a lot of surfing. And then that transitioned me into extreme sports at an early age. I'm going to date myself on this big time, but when snowboarding started, we all got into snowboarding. I owned one of the first Burton snowboards with my Sorels, for those of you that, remember that. Anyways, so I got into extreme sports at the time. I never ran outside of the running that we had to do in soccer and those couple years of football. I wasn't a runner. I never considered myself that. But over my lifetime, I've always tried to do well in my extreme sports, and that's kept me in the gym working out. One year I did go on this crazy thing. When I turned 40, I wanted to do a triathlon, so I did that, and I had to train for that. I also wanted to do a marathon, so I trained to do one marathon and one triathlon, and that was the extent of my running career. Outside of that, not much, man. Besides trying to stay healthy and stay in the gym and feel good about myself, nothing like what I've been doing the last year and a half with Spartan Racing. This is all new to me.
Well, and how did that, I mean, what got you into Spartan Racing? Because I know you and I have been, you've raced off-road for a long time at a competitive level. You've got race wins, things like that. I know, you know what I mean? I mean, how did this transition happen to Spartan Racing? And I know, this question says, what made you decide to retire? I know you're not retired. You're just, the right opportunity comes along. We all know racing. You're never actually retired from racing. But how did this door open to Spartan Racing? Because, dude, you've got the itch in Spartan Racing just as much as you had for off-road.
Well, Jim, as you know, because you've been around off-road racing for a long time, there was a time where most guys in off-road, and I hate to say this, they were not very athletic. You saw some big boys getting out of those cars, and I just thought early on, like, hey, if I had a physical endurance and strength about me in the race car, I could probably perform better in the car and took more of an athletic approach. I know that NASCAR started doing that about the same time I was thinking it as well. And some other guys out there in off-road racing were doing the same thing. So for me, it was always about having some type of physical activity in my life in off-road racing. But about 3 years ago, I started going to HeartFit and using Jordan as a trainer because I really wanted to do well. I was going to solo Vegas to Reno. And for my listeners that don't know that race, it's a over 500-mile race from Las Vegas to Reno, Nevada. It's the longest off-road or car race in North America. And I wanted to solo drive it, and I thought I better train up for that. And Jordan started getting me prepared to do that, and he incorporated a lot of endurance things, not only strength training, but running and being able to perform at that level for a long period of time. Now, I didn't train to do a 15-hour race in the gym, but I was physically strong for it. And really what happened is after I was going there for a year, I was feeling really good, and my wife decided she wanted to get into some training. And so she started coming in and working out, and she was doing really well. And I had mentioned to her, like, hey, maybe you should run a half a marathon or a marathon. I'll give you something to shoot for. You're doing really well in the gym. You seem to do well on the treadmill. And we were talking to Jordan about it, and he says, well, you guys should go do a Spartan race together and enjoy doing that as a team. And Samantha and I went out and did a Spartan race, and it only took one to get the bug. It's just like off-road racing. We call it the crack pipe, right? It only took one time, and we, oh my gosh, this is so great. Let's do it again. And that's what happened to us, Jim. We got hooked right off the bat.
Yeah, well, and how is that with Sam? Because I know Sam well, and love her and your whole family to death. I mean, and she's been by your side for a long time, and now she's got the bug and the itch for Spartan Racing as well. I mean, how does that help you? I mean, obviously she knows what goes into it, what you need to put into it, your schedule, things like that. I mean, do you feel like having her involved in some of the same things you are, it definitely makes things a little bit easier?
Well, we've gone through two transitions. The first transition was, hey, we like this as a couple. Let's go out and have some fun. And what's neat about the Spartan series is that they have what they call the open class. And that's where they encourage everybody to enter and come out, get off the couch, and race. And so we did a couple races like that, and we were doing pretty well. They still tell you how you did against your fellow competitors. So we were doing pretty well, and Sam's like, I just feel like there's a lot of people out here on their phone, and they're taking pictures, and they're walking, I'm frustrated. They're not doing all their burpees. By the way, if you can't do an obstacle, they make you do burpees, which they consider one of the most physically demanding exercises because you're using everything, like every part of your body. And if you fail an obstacle, it's 30 burpees per fail.
Wow.
So, and obviously if you don't do all your burpees, then you're done faster and basically you're going to get ahead of the next guy because you cheated. And so Samantha was getting really frustrated with that. And I said, well, we can enter the competitive class and, now we'll be competing against people that are much better. So she's like, yeah, let's do that. And fortunately for her, she did well. She actually had a nice placement. So in her first race that she raced competitive, I think she got first place. And I think I got a podium, and then she wound up getting a couple first places in a row, and then she was hooked, right? And then I was frustrated, like, wait, she's getting first and I'm getting third and second. And then it was kind of on, right? So that was our second transition into the competitive racing. Well, then this last year, it got really tough in her class because a lot of the pros, so the third level that you can go in Spartan is basically pro level. And there's a very, very small group of people they're like subhuman, man. I can't even explain these athletes. And a lot of these pros were dropping into the competitive class because the benefits were either equal or better in the competitive class. So now all of a sudden we're racing against pros that have jumped into our class. And so she was starting to, I think she's always finished top 10 in her age group, but she was starting to be off the podium or second or third. So then, she got a little bit burned out on that, but she still kept going out. And so I was so proud of her this last race up in Tahoe for the World Championship. She got first in her age group on the day that she raced. So it was an amazing accomplishment for her to get that. But I would say our third transition now is she's had a good year. She's got a win, recent win, and I'm not sure she's going to want to keep doing it. She's already thinking about, well, maybe I'm going to go do something else. So we'll see where this goes for us. I hope that she sticks it out because, again, to answer your question with the long story, it's been great because we both understand the amount of training and dedication it takes to go out there and win and get a podium, that we've worked it out with watching the kids or the understanding of, hey, you got to get up at 5 a.m. and go run. Then when you get back, I'm going to go run so that we can watch the kids. And we've just worked it out. And it's been great this last year to be able to train together with similar programs towards our competitive level that we're in right now.
Well, that being said, I mean, all this training you're talking about and things like that, I mean, you're sitting here, you're doing all this training. I know what you do on a daily basis. I mean, you've got Baja United, you've got podcasting, you've got so many things going on. I mean, how do you prioritize all this stuff and find time to train and business and, it's a heck of a juggle you got going on, Jim.
Well, I talked about it on one of my podcasts not too long ago. I keep a legal pad, those yellow legal pads, and every night or at the end of each day, I write a list of to-dos for the following day as it relates not only to business or my podcast, my personal life, and my training. So when I wake up in the morning, I've got a fresh list of what needs to be accomplished that day, and I just try to follow that regimen. And I'll be perfectly honest with you, I do not let my relationship with my kids and my family suffer, so they are my priority. So I look at, okay, what time do the kids have to go to school? Are they in school today? What do they want to do? What's that daddy and me time look like? And I schedule that in, and I make sure I'm available for that. And then outside of that, I work my training around Sam's training, and usually our day starts about 4:50 in the morning, and that's getting up, getting some coffee if it's not off the list, and one of us is out doing our workout and getting our training in, so that by 8:30 we're both done, and now it's the kids are getting up and it's getting them fed, and then the work just starts from there. So and it goes until it's bedtime. We don't consume a lot of TV, and I try not to consume a lot of social media content because I'm sure a lot of people can relate. You hop on Instagram or Facebook, and next thing you know, you just burn 30 or 40 minutes, down a rabbit hole looking at stuff that's not going to make your day go any better or make you money or take care of your kids, right?
Yeah, I've tried to be better about that too. It's like you said, social media is just a dark hole. And I know recently I've had people ask me, they're like, hey, you're not posting as much as you do normally. And I'm like, instead of me combing through a bunch of pictures for 45 minutes trying to find something to post, if I don't have anything good to post, I'm just not posting. It's like, it's one of those, like, if I post, it's real and it's something that's going on in my life. And it's like, I think so many people get sucked into that, and it's a productivity killer. Like, as good as social media is, and especially for my career and podcasting and what I do, like, it helps get the word out, and it's, it's easy marketing, but it is a deep, dark, black hole. And I see so many people get sucked in at the end of the day. They're like, I got nothing accomplished, but they spent 4 hours, on Facebook or Instagram. And I'm like, man, it's a killer, Jim.
Yeah. And I do appreciate social media for what it is. It allows me to see what friends and family and relatives and distant people are doing. I'm just trying to spend less time doing that. And I'm turning it more into really that entertainment time that I might allocate for the day. So if I'm not going to watch a favorite show, then it's like, okay, I'll dedicate that 30 or 40 minutes to enjoyment of social media or reading a book or something, right? So I'm not adding on top of my day some social media